Hi, welcome to China Now. I am Makiza Latifa. Let's get started with China Currents with Kris, who will present to you your weekly news report of what's trending in China. In this week's episode, Kris will tell you all about President Xi Jinping's visit to Europe, which began with France on May 5th. This visit comes at the 60th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between China and France, which have always been sort of special compared with major Western countries. The segment will also feature news on tourism and technology, so let's get straight into it.
China Currents is a weekly news talk show from China to the world. We cover viral news about China every week and also give you the newest updates on China's cutting-edge technologies. Let's get started. Hi, welcome to China Currents. I'm Kris. Let's start this week's episode with President Xi Jinping's visit to Europe, beginning with France. On May 5th, Chinese President Xi Jinping arrived in Paris and was welcomed by French Minister Gabriel Attal. In a written speech upon his arrival in Paris, Xi looked back to history and said that over the past 60 years, China-France relations have long been at the forefront of China's ties with major Western countries, setting a good example for the international community of peaceful coexistence and win-win cooperation between countries with different systems. On May 6, Chinese President Xi Jinping held talk with his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron in Paris. Xi indicated that China and France should uphold mutual benefits, jointly oppose acts of decoupling and disrupting industrial and supply chains, and say no together to building barriers. In an article published in French media Le Figaro, Xi said that we live in a world that is far from being tranquil and is once again facing a multitude of risks. China is ready to work with France in a spirit that guided the establishment of our diplomatic ties to forge a stronger, comprehensive strategic partnership between our two countries and make new contributions to stronger cooperation of the global community. Xi's visit to France comes at the 60th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between China and France. The Sino-French relations have always been sort of special compared with major Western countries. Since Charles de Gaulle, France has always remained, or should I say, deliberately distanced itself from the US agenda and achieved a degree of foreign policy autonomy compared with other NATO states. France was the first major Western country to recognize Beijing, and that was in the early 60s, a period of containment, the Iron Curtain, marked by the Cuba Missile Crisis, Berlin Wall, and LBJ's ruthless escalation that led to an all-out Vietnam War. It was definitely an unorthodox and courageous move to make. So, considering such history, it becomes clear why China chose France to be the first stop for President Xi Jinping in his first visit to EU in 5 years. As Xi mentioned in his talk with Macron, China and France should uphold independence and jointly fend off a new Cold War, a bloc confrontation. Official reports from both Chinese and French media say another issue high on the agenda this time is to open up the Chinese market to French produce, especially in agriculture. From French farms to Chinese dinner tables, as the Chinese state media say. Wines, sausages, milk, and bacon are among the names that the state media mention. There surely are potentials in trade between China and France. China and European Union are each other's second largest trading partner. In 2023, EU's export to China is approximately $160 billion, in which France's export only occupies a very small proportion of $21.3 billion. In comparison, in 2023, Russia alone exported $129.1 billion worth of goods to China. However, the trade agreement, especially the agriculture part, did not lead to much reaction on the Chinese internet. Many netizens doubt if French agricultural products can survive the highly competitive Chinese market. Apparently, there's still a long way to go for the French. Next up, as we record today, China is just recovering from the travel frenzy during the Labor Day holidays, where 300 million trips were taken, and that is just within China. There are real internet footages of people mountain, people sea, 人山人海, a phrase used in Chinese to describe the overwhelming amount of people. Since China gradually lifted all COVID controls last year, there has been no lack of debates both inside and outside of China on the state of China's economic recovery. But at least in the field of tourism, sentiments are visibly high as evidenced by what's been trending over the May holidays. And data from the Ministry of Culture and Tourism indicate a 7.6% jump in the number of domestic trips taken during the same period last year and 28.2% increase from 2019 at pre-pandemic level. Domestic tourism spending also saw a significant increase, reaching 166.89 billion yuan, a 12.7% year-on-year rise and a 13.5% increase from 2019. According to Chinese state media Global Times, the growth rate indicates a strong recovery in domestic consumption because the May holiday numbers exceed both the Qingming Tomb Sweeping Festival just a month ago and the Chinese New Year Spring Festival in February. And it's not just tourism. Other consumptions in China has also been firing on all cylinders during the May Day holidays. According to Chinese state media, it's projected that China's social media retail sales will grow by more than 5% in 2024, a key indicator and contributor towards pumping economic growth to meet a target of 5% GDP growth. Also news in tourism, countries around the world are also taking actions to attract Chinese visitors. The list of countries offering visa exemption to Chinese nationals have grown quite significantly in recent years. On May 5th, Cuba's Minister for Tourism Juan Carlos Garcia announced a new policy that allows Chinese passport holders to enter Cuba visa-free. Havana also announced that China will be a guest country during Cuba's 2025 Tourism Festival, adding that direct air flights would resume on May 17th. Comments on Chinese internet suggest visa exemption will ramp up Chinese people's interest in traveling to Latin America, a region known to most Chinese people for cultural exoticness and natural landmarks. Following the announcement, China-based online travel platforms reported a 40% jump in searches for keywords related to Cuba. Meanwhile, China is also taking steps to track foreign inbound tourists. But let's go back to Xi's visit to France for a second. At a joint meeting with the press with French President Emmanuel Macron on May 6th, Chinese President Xi Jinping said that China is to extend the short-stay visa exemption policy for citizens of 12 countries, including France, to the end of 2025. Details were later confirmed by Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian that citizens from 12 countries will be able to visit China for business, sightseeing, transit, and other purposes for up to 15 days without having to apply for a visa. The 12 countries are France, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, Spain, Malaysia, Switzerland, Ireland, Hungary, Austria, Belgium, and Luxembourg. Chinese state media Global Times believe that the measures will significantly boost inbound tourism, which also demonstrates China's commitment to fostering people-to-people exchanges and determination to opening up. Next up, military. On May 8th, China's third aircraft carrier, the Fujian, returned to its port in Shanghai after successfully wrapping up its 8-day maiden voyage. Chinese state media regards it as a crucial step to empower the Chinese People's Liberation Army Navy to better safeguard peace and stability when faced with maritime and aerial security threats. According to the Chinese Navy, the Fujian completed a series of tests on its subsystems and equipment, including the propulsion and electrical systems. It will continue to carry out follow-up test procedures according to the plan. Unlike its predecessors, the 60,000-ton class Liaoning and Shandong that use ski jump ramps to assist aircraft takeoffs, the 80,000-ton class Fujian is China's first aircraft carrier to be equipped with 3 electromagnetic catapults to launch aircrafts. It's also the largest and most advanced aircraft carrier ever built outside the United States. The larger displacement allowed the Fujian to carry more aircraft, and electromagnetic catapults enable the carrier to launch aircraft more efficiently, including launching heavier aircraft, launching more types of aircraft, launching fully loaded aircraft, and launching aircraft faster. On Chinese internet, netizens are thrilled to see both the maiden voyage and the technical breakthroughs that the Fujian has managed to achieve in such a short period of time. It's been only a little over 10 years since China's first aircraft carrier, the Shandong, which was built on the basis of Soviet Union's abandoned Kuznetsov-class aircraft carrier Variak, was commissioned to the Chinese Navy. Beside the Fujian, netizens are also excited about the comment made by Yuan Huazhi, Commissar of the PLA Navy, who said the next aircraft is in progress and will be China's first nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. Next up, let's turn to a dispute happened just at the doorstep of Chinese territorial water. On May 6th, Australian Defense Minister Richard Marles said the Chinese J-10 fighter jet released flares in the flight path of an Australian Navy Seahawk helicopter deployed from an Australian air warfare destroyer HMAS Hobart. Australia claimed that the incident happened in the international water when its Navy was enforcing UN Security Council sanctions against North Korea in the Yellow Sea. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese told the press that we've just made it very clear to China that this is unprofessional and that is unacceptable. Well, first, this is the Yellow Sea. International water? Yes, but still at the doorstep of China. Let's hear the Chinese side's argument. Zhang Xiaogang, spokesperson from the Ministry of National Defense, refuted Australia's accusation. He stated that from May 3rd to 4th, during the training of Chinese naval vessels in relevant waters of the Yellow Sea, the Australian guided missile destroyer HMAS Hobart sent shipborne helicopters 3 times to conduct closing reconnaissance and disturb the normal training activities of the Chinese side. The Chinese military issued warnings and forced them away. The relevant operations were reasonable, professional, and safe, and fully in line with international law and practice, Zhang stated. Well, in this case, I presume the Australians will probably be very happy if they spotted a Chinese helicopter watching them drilling outside Darwin, in the international water, of course. Coffee or tea, my friend? Last but not least, let's turn to technology. On a bustling city street, a jogger's sweat-wicking athletic top collects energy from embedded photovoltaic threads, charging a smart fabric as they run. Subtle ventilation zones activate, controlled by fabric sensors detecting rising body temperature. Their wireless earbuds never need removing to recharge. Miniature conductive coils woven into the shirt collar keep them perpetually topped up. After the workout, the self-deodorizing shirt fibers activate with a quick voice command. And on a commute home, powerful heating elements lining the jacket's interior fend off the evening chill. As the smart garments are shed for bed, they automatically start recharging on the fabric charging mat, ready to seamlessly power another day. Thanks to a groundbreaking development, these technologies will no longer be kept in the realm of science fiction. Researchers at Fudan University in Shanghai have unveiled a remarkable fiber lithium-ion battery that could pave the way for a new era of wearable electronics. Led by Professor Peng Huishen, the team has solved critical challenges in creating flexible, high-energy, and safe fiber batteries, bringing us one step closer to seamlessly integrating power sources into clothing and textiles. Their results are published in the journal Nature recently. The key innovation lies in the battery's unique fiber electrode design with a porous structure, allowing it to effectively combine with a polymer gel electrolyte. This solves the long-standing issue of poor interface stability between electrodes and gel electrolytes, which previously resulted in low energy storage capacity. We were inspired by how Rhaphidophora vines adhere to surfaces using a secreted liquid that polymerizes into a stable bond, explained Peng. By mimicking this mechanism with our fiber electrodes and monomer solution, we achieved a tight, stable interface between the electrode and gel electrolyte. The result is a fiber battery that can be continuously manufactured at scale, with the team already operating a pilot production line capable of producing 300 watts per hour. The fibers, with a diameter of just 500 micrometers, can be woven into battery fabrics virtually indistinguishable from ordinary cloth. A 50 cm by 30 cm piece of our battery fabric has a capacity equivalent to a typical smartphone battery, said Haibo Jiang, a doctoral student on the project. and with a material cost of around 0.5 yuan per meter, mass production could make this technology incredibly affordable. But the true breakthrough lies in the battery's remarkable safety and durability. Extensive testing has shown that the battery fabric can withstand 100 washes and 10,000 friction cycles, high and low temperatures, vacuum environment, and even physical damage, all while continuing to power devices safely and reliably. In simulations of high-temperature fire scenarios, our battery fabric didn't catch fire or explode even when cut or abraded, and it could still power essential equipment like walkie-talkies and sensors, Peng added. With such robust performance, the applications for this fiber battery technology are vast, from empowering emergency responders and scientific expeditions to enabling futuristic innovations like bionic limbs, soft robotics, and immersive virtual reality. The potential application space is immense, but it will take collaboration across academia and industry to fully explore and realize it, Jiang stated. If all goes well, we could see commercial products hitting the market within a year. Also in technology, let's take a look at this manta ray as it glides effortlessly through the water. Its massive wings undulating in a mesmerizing rhythm, with each graceful flap it propels itself forward, seemingly suspended in the weightless aquatic environment. For untrained eyes, it's really hard to spot anything unusual, just another day in the aquarium. However, this creature in front of us is nothing short of an engineering miracle. This manta ray is like no other. Developed by scientists from Shanghai Ocean University, the Bionic Fish Wenyao replicates the marine animal's ethereal motion through a carefully engineered soft-bodied structure. When a manta uses the power of its muscular fins to soar through the water, Wenyao mimics this movement with a meticulously designed series of actuators and control systems. Named after a mythical creature from the classics of mountains and seas, an ancient collection of folklores and geography dating back to around 200 BC, Wenyao weighs 35 pounds and has a wingspan of 1 meter. It is a result of over a decade of research and development by a team of more than 30 experts at university. Currently, numerous scientific institutions worldwide are focusing on research related to rigid and flexible structures, while our team specializes in the field of soft-bodied structures, explained Chen Xinjun, Dean of the School of Marine Bioresources and Management and the leader of the Bionic Fish project. We took inspiration from the ethology of real fish, meticulously replicating their morphology, motion, behavior, structure, and materials to create this highly realistic and capable bionic model. The core components of the Wenyao are fully domestically produced in China, boasting high efficiency, low power consumption, and multifunctionality. Crucially, the Bionic Fish also possesses 3 key advantages: compatibility, super biomimicry, and stealth, making it well suited for a wide range of maritime applications. The Wenyao can easily navigate underwater, turning, rolling, and looping with remarkable agility, despite weighing 35 pounds in the air, Chen said, and with just 3 small batteries, it can operate for over 3 hours, demonstrating its impressive endurance. The Bionic Fish's capability extends far beyond merely mimicking a real creature. Equipped with a suite of high-precision sensors, Wenyao can perform underwater monitoring tasks, mapping ocean topography, and even identifying fish schools with an accuracy rate of up to 90% using advanced AI-powered target recognition technology. This is just the beginning, Chen noted. The next generation of Wenyao will be integrated with Huawei chips, giving it even greater intelligence and expanding its potential application in marine science, environmental protection, and economic development. By achieving a remarkable resemblance to living organisms in terms of external contours and dynamic full-motion simulation, Wenyao has been able to soar through the ocean with astonishing authenticity. The unveiling of the Wenyao marks a significant milestone in China's pursuit of cutting-edge bionic technology. Its wide range of applications, including deep-sea exploration and offshore fishing, holds significant importance, contributing to the development of the maritime economy and safeguarding of national sovereignty. Well, that's all for today. Thank you for watching this episode of China Currents. If you have any thoughts and comments about our show, please reach us at the email address below. I'm Kris. Looking forward to hearing from you and see you next time.
And it's a wrap on China Currents. Thank you, Kris. Let's now turn our attention to the Thinkers Forum, the segment where we engage our scholars and thinkers on very critical issues, and most importantly, the relations between China and the rest of the world.
On May 8th, Chinese President Xi Jinping arrived in Budapest as the final stop of his European tour. Why did he choose Hungary as the grand finale of his trip? Strategist Professor Wang Xiangsui shares his thoughts with us. Until Chinese President Xi Jinping paid his visit to Hungary, many Western politicians didn't fully realize the determination of Viktor Orban, Prime Minister of Hungary, to advance the interests of his country through cooperation with China, even at the risk of upsetting the U.S. This long overdue wake-up call is surely unsettling to those in denial. While Politico referred to Xi's public letter celebrating the two countries' 75-year-old diplomatic relations as a love letter to Viktor Orban, the truth is that the bilateral relationship has long surpassed the stage of mere love letters. It is now a full-on partnership with tangible cooperation. This relationship also holds great significance for China. Through cooperation with Hungary, China aims to set an example for a Sino-European community where bilateral relations extend beyond diplomacy to include deep engagement in culture, industry, and technology. Industries involving cutting-edge technologies are witnessing an increasingly close relationship between China and Hungary. As the second-largest recipient of Chinese investment in Europe, with bilateral trade volume in high-tech industries accounting for 80%, Hungary hosts a variety of Chinese companies who have established production bases there, including contemporary Amperex Technology Capo, CATL, China's leading manufacturer of lithium-ion batteries and energy storage systems, and BYD Auto, China's top-selling manufacturer of battery electric vehicles. Contrary to some Western companies, especially those from the U.S., which kept their most advanced technology away from China when establishing production lines in the country, Chinese companies venturing into overseas markets have long realized that technologies evolve rapidly. Instead of being paranoid about the potential leakage of technology, a company should actively apply the technology to products that will elicit consumer feedback, which is essential for optimizing the technology. And that is what we call a constructive attitude. The United States, on the other hand, views the concept of national security as a panacea to all of its problems with China. In its desperate attempt to retain as many technologies as possible from China, which is perceived as its main competitor, the U.S. is condemned to witness China's growing independence from U.S. technology and patent authorization. Ultimately, this misstep by the United States stems from its reluctance to acknowledge China's economic development and overall capabilities, while China has no such intention regarding Hungary. China sees the introduction of electric vehicles to other countries, where EVs could even serve as a foundational industry crucial to the development of the technology itself. Observing the U.S., once a leader in globalization, now vehemently restraining globalization, I couldn't help but feel it's being quite petty. Cultural cooperation between China and Hungary may also have contributed to the sour feelings shared by some European and U.S. media outlets. Fudan University from China has officially opened a branch in Hungary, marking it the first Chinese university to establish a presence in Europe of its kind. I'd like to highlight one important commonality shared by three countries chosen by Chinese President Xi Jinping for his visit to Europe. That is, they all enjoy or seek to enjoy strategic autonomy. While we often hear Europeans expressing their desire for strategic autonomy, the reality is that most EU countries, particularly some NATO members, fail to demonstrate such independence. Some have even abandoned the pursuit of strategic autonomy and instead follow the lead of the United States in international affairs and their engagements with China. Amidst this prevailing surrender of autonomy, Hungary stands out for its active role in the China Central and Eastern European Countries Cooperation Plan, formulated in 2012. President Xi's trip to Budapest undoubtedly demonstrates China's appreciation of Hungary's pursuit of strategic autonomy. I'd say Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orbán is a man of vision. To secure the greatest possible influence for Hungary in a world where the US treats every country as pawns, Orbán knew he had to rely on strategic autonomy. An anecdote not long ago showcased his strategic acumen. Orbán, while visiting the US, managed to meet with Trump and informed media afterwards that Trump could end the Russia-Ukraine war within 24 hours. Without specifying how Trump was able to do so, Orbán successfully created suspense, wielding a stone with which he could kill two birds. Firstly, it sent a message that Orbán could use to challenge the Biden administration. Secondly, it demonstrated his neutrality in the war, thus avoiding the unfavorable position in which Germany found itself. Additionally, he has proven adept at leveraging the voting mechanism within NATO, securing $10 billion in funding for his country. Hungary is treated as an outcast within the EU regarding how to engage with China, when in fact, it's merely manifesting strategic autonomy. After World War II, many EU countries opted for blind reliance on the US for security, to the extent of cutting funds for national defense. Consequently, their diplomatic policies all mirror such choices. However, Hungary needs no better affirmation of its choice than history, which lays bare the tragic fate of those who refrain from independence and autonomy, whose fate as a proxy echoes that of Ukraine.
Shyam Saran is the former Foreign Secretary of India, who is currently the president of the India International Center, and he's going to share with us his thoughts on the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor and China's Belt and Road Initiative.
What is the nature of this IMEC, the India-Middle East Economic Corridor? Number one, unlike the BRI, which is mostly conducted through bilateral partnerships, the IMEC is a multilateral initiative. So it is not an Indian initiative. It is not a US initiative. It is not even a bilateral initiative between India and the US. It is a truly multilateral initiative, unlike the BRI, as I mentioned. So there are several countries which are partners. India is partnering together not only with the US, European Union, but we are also partnering, for example, United Arab Emirates, with Saudi Arabia, and also with Israel. Now, even here, you will notice that as far as Piraeus is concerned, which is a very important component of this corridor, Piraeus is mostly owned and operated by Chinese company, right? So majority holding of the Piraeus port, which is one of the most important ports in Europe, and which is a component of the IMEC, that is in fact with under China's control. So we are not even, if we wanted to exclude China, then why would we even think in terms of, Piraeus port being the one of the termini for this project. So it is not a question of, excluding or including China. We see a certain value in this partnership of India with these various countries, and there may be various points at which there could be also, as I mentioned, possibilities of cooperation with China's Belt and Road Initiative. That is not excluded. So I think there should not be a kind of perception in China that somehow this India-Middle East Economic Corridor is directed against China or is a kind of a substitute for the Belt and Road Initiative. The infrastructure requirements of the world are so large that there is enough space for both a PRI as well as an IMEC. That is the manner in which I look at it. You see, already before the relations became strained, already India and China were looking at very, very large scope for cooperation. India was quite open to establishing closer economic and commercial links with China. Before the relations became strained, India was looked upon by China as perhaps a very major market for 5G. For Huawei, for example, I mean, they were already exploring with India whether or not could adopt the Chinese 5G technology. Or, for example, when we are talking today about things like mobile telephones, some of the most important players in the Indian market, even after relations became strained, are in fact Chinese companies. Okay, so to my mind, the opportunities for the two countries to actually work together, not only providing opportunities for Chinese companies, but meeting India's own infrastructure needs. Chinese companies can play a very important role. But I think we need to understand that in order for us to be able to engage, particularly in long-term projects, which have a long gestation period, it is extremely important that relations should be positive and they should be stable over a period of time. That is, companies in both countries should have the sort of assurance that the political relationship between the two countries will not suddenly deteriorate and their economic relations may be affected. Then I think the way will open for the two countries to really have a strong economic and commercial relationship. Governments come and go. The situation with regard to foreign policy may change this way or that way, but I think for stable relationship, people-to-people relationships are very important. And for that, a degree of familiarity with each other, a degree of intimacy with each other is very important. So in that respect, as I said, there is a certain gap of understanding amongst the people of China about India and amongst the people of India about China. We know more about the United States, we know more about Western Europe than we do about China. And I suspect that the same is true of China. So I think it is very, shall I say, rather discouraging that the two most important countries of Asia, having a very long history and also history of close contact with each other, have somehow drifted apart. Indians should be exposed to what ordinary Chinese people think. I have served in China for 6 years and I have visited China a number of times. I have not felt hostility on the part of Chinese people towards India. And I suspect that the same is true of Chinese people in India. So we have to try and build on that relationship. For that, we need greater engagement. More Chinese people coming to India, visiting different places in India, more Indians going to China, visiting different places in China, having contact amongst students, amongst intellectuals, amongst artists, amongst cultural people, amongst our scientists, amongst our engineers. When you have that kind of a relationship which is established and expanded, then even the political relations become much more stable. That is number one. And number two is with regard to the relationship between the two states. There also we need to have greater engagement and we need to have greater dialogue. Because only through that kind of a dialogue can we come to some kind of a consensus as to how we want to take this relationship forward. Now, I can say as a diplomat, as a person who has dealt with China and have experience of that, I believe that there are many areas in which India and China can work together. I was also the chief negotiator for climate change in India. I used to work very closely together with the special envoy on climate change from China, the CH Hua, who only recently retired, I think, from that position. We used to work very, very closely together. Why? Because we had similar interests. Similarly, in the WTO, our interests with regard to the multilateral rules on trade, on investment were very similar. I mean, that is not strange because both of us are, as I said, emerging economies. So our interests are similar. Now, it should come as no surprise to you that if India and China work together, they have a much greater chance of being able to adjust these regimes in their own interests. But if we are working, separately, not really, consulting each other or working together with each other, then naturally those who have different interests will divide us. So it is, my view is that there are a number of issues, global issues, on which India and China still have common interests. And they should find a way to work on them. There are also new regimes which are emerging. Okay, there are many issues relating to climate change. The melting of the glaciers, for example, the Himalayas. Can we deal with that without India and China working together? We cannot. So there are many global issues, or what are called, the kind of commons, the global commons, whose preservation, whose maintenance and health is so important both to India and China. There are many of these kind of global issues which go beyond our bilateral relations. Okay. And finally, with regard to the polarization which we see in the world today, we certainly do not see in India's interest that there should be a new kind of a confrontation between, say, East and the West. We certainly want to see a more peaceful world because our development requires a peaceful world. So are India and China able to prevent that kind of polarization of the world? Now, also depends, India looks upon itself as, for example, a country of the global south. We are talking about developing countries today as a constituency, which is known as the global south. Now, if India is trying to promote the interests of the global south, does China regard itself as a member of the global south or not? And ready to work together with India to advance the interests of the global south? Or does it look at its own interests mainly in relationship with, say, the United States of America? How to try bring about some kind of a balancing of interests with the most important power in the world. So there are choices to be made. Choices that India has to make, but choices also China has to make. Now, what choices we make depends upon how we are able to sit down together, as I said, and really talk about what has gone wrong with the earlier consensus and what is a new consensus that now needs to be established between the two countries. Because that is what is required in order to put our relations on a more stable footing.
Here is where we part ways on today's edition of the show. My name is Makiza Latifa. Many thanks for choosing to stay with us. Please remember to share with us your comments, thoughts, feedback, and suggestions for the coming episodes of the show. See you next week.